So, I'm pretty sure my best friend who's sitting across from me probably doesn't know this. So, I'm going to tell some tales out of school here. In late 2002, I'm over at my now best friend's house, and he asked me, "Do you ever see this movie?" And I said, "No, I don't think I've ever. I mean, I've heard about it, but never sat and watched it." And so, that's my first introduction to our first episode, Almost Famous, which is crazy because it came out in 2000. It was also huge at the Oscar run in 2000 because I literally remember it and going, "What the hell is that?" during those 2000 Oscars.
Ooh, I love this damn movie so much.
But it took me until 2002 to really actually watch it and see it in a different way. So welcome to Movie Marks with our first episode, which is Almost Famous. Now, this may sound a little bit different, may sound a little bit weird, and let me tell you what's going on here. So this is our new podcast, and it's about movie fans, movie marks. There's a term in Carney, if you watch a lot of wrestling, that calls out somebody called a mark. That is us. We are the marks. We are the fans, the uber fans, the crazy fans, the fans who can't get enough of the film.
We geek out over movies.
So why not take you guys along with us on this journey of our movie friendship and us being movie fans? So welcome to the Movie Marks. I'm your host, one of your hosts, Dew. And always with me, my partner, my best friend, Randy Kirk.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, and as Dew says over here, yeah, we want to take you along on this journey because the whole point, I mean, we don't just want to talk movies with each other. We've been doing that for 25 years already. So we want to hear from you all as well. Any of you guesting on the podcast in the future. We want to talk movies with you, movies that you mark out about, or movies that particularly hit the mark or miss the mark. We want to talk about that stuff. So I'm ready. I'm excited. This is going to be a blast.
So get acquainted with us, and you're going to hear a lot of new people because that's what this is about as well. We want to bring in our friends, our listeners, and hear what movies hit their marks. So, like I said, our first episode here is Almost Famous, 2000, written, directed by Cameron Crowe. It's probably my favorite movie, which is wild because, like I said in the beginning, I hadn't seen it when it first came out.
Ooh, of all time. Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big claim. But yeah, I do. I feel like, the cat's out of the bag, right? This movie hits the mark easily.
Right.
There's very few things, we'll talk about it, but I think there's very few things that miss the mark with this one, but I am so excited to talk about it. So Uncle Dew, I'll let you set it up for us, but before we do that, I'm just going to crack into
you got a tasty beverage?
Yeah, I have to, right? Wet the whistle before we get into this.
Yeah, what are you drinking right now?
I'm drinking, you bought this for me, it's the Sound Growler, which is out of Tinley Park. It's their Willing Blood, which is a red IPA. This is tasty. What do you got?
And I'm drinking the Voodoo Ranger Juice Force IPA, which, crazy enough, you're the one who got me into the IPAs.
Well, we're cheersing. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers, pal.
Good stuff.
First episode. Here we go.
All right, here we go.
All right,
so let's see. Yeah, kind of an overview, of Almost Famous. What do you want to talk about? Give everybody a little background if they don't know Almost Famous.
So, Almost Famous is about a very young man, William Miller, who dreams of being a rock journalist, and it's sort of an autobiography for the writer/director. So, if you don't know much about him, Cameron Crowe was a huge writer when he was 15, 16. He wrote for Rolling Stone. He wrote for Playboy. He wrote for Cream Magazine. He interviewed bands like the Allman Brothers, The Who. And we'll discuss why that's sort of germane to this movie as we go along. He also is a fantastic director and probably in Randy and I's top 10 directors of maybe all time.
Oh, easily, yeah.
This is one of those directors that Randy and I have commonly like seen a lot of shit of together.
Yes. Well, yeah, I mean, because he obviously got to start early, but he didn't really hit it big until, just shortly before we met.
Yeah.
Which was Jerry Maguire.
Right.
That was his big claim to fame. I know he did singles, and but Jerry Maguire is really what skyrocketed him to become a name.
Right. So this film, like I said, William Miller, a young kid who's just starting out in rock journalism form, and he meets this band on the grips of stardom called Stillwater. And through that time, he goes through this crazy life's journey of figuring out what it is to be a young man. And so that's pretty much Almost Famous.
That's it, yeah. It's a hell of a story that I love. So, yeah, well, I guess we'll talk about, I don't know, highlights, right? We'll talk about your thoughts on it, your highlights. Try to take it back to 2002, if you can, to your initial viewing of it. Because I know you've probably seen it, 20, 30, 50 times since then? So,
well,
more than that?
You and I are one of those, we've said this in other iterations of other things, where we do this thing where we can have a movie in the background playing at any point in time, and that's a handful of movies that we'll do that with. Almost Famous is definitely one of those.
It's a comfort thing because it doesn't have to be, either the sound can be on, just the sound, and it's cool. Just the video can be on, and that's also cool. I mean, just as long as it's on in the background, you got something going, right? So I absolutely have been that way as well, and I've fallen asleep many, many nights to this movie.
Yeah. So in 2002, just everything wrapped up in this package. There's very few things about this movie that I do not like. The things that really stood out to me is Frances McDormand. She was coming off from a couple of runs with the Coen brothers, of course. The Fargo, and Frances is married to one of the Coen brothers, and so I was familiar with her in that, but like her as this strong Anita, like this overbearing mother. Like everything about her is just so funny.
It's almost how I picture her in real life.
Right.
Even though I think, she's much more of a hippie in real life. But, I picture her as that kind of like crass, overbearing mother. I may be wrong, but...
The different things that she did, like the start of the movie is just... You get a feel for what their home life is. You get a feel for this sheltered William Miller, where he finds out that he's actually 11 and he's in high school. Played off from this very demanding and...
But I think you're right, because, I mean, Fargo really was her claim to fame up to that point. I mean, she had definitely been in some things.
Yeah.
Because she was in Primal Fear. She was in Darkman, which, we love. We geeks, comic book geeks, whatever that
right.
We like Darkman. Also, Sam Raimi, tip of the hat to him. So she had definitely been in some things, but, yeah, I think Fargo was obviously her breakout role.
Well, and then you have Zooey Deschanel, who I absolutely, like, I wasn't familiar with her pre-Almost Famous.
I had no idea who she was.
But in everything that she's in, she's one of those... There's a reason why there's that funniness where it's like, oh, Zooey Deschanel, disarming type. Like, you fall in love with her.
Well, and us being teenage boys.
Right.
Yeah.
And so here this all sets up. You see, this relationship where she's being strong and she's decided to leave the nest and she decides to sort of help her brother, navigate into what's cool. And, when you're 18 or 20 or whatever, the things that are cool in that time frame are what? Music and movies. And so, everybody sees themselves a little bit in William Miller.
Yeah, in the 60s, right. To break out, you had to be an artsy-fartsy type, whether you're a musician or a filmmaker or you ride a motorcycle and you're in a street gang, right? Like, I guess that's probably about it.
And so the casting of this movie, which is wild because it could have been a completely different movie. Mm-hmm. We'll get into that a little bit later. But everybody in this movie, having seen some of the extras, I actually received the bootleg version of this DVD. It used to, when they packaged this DVD when it first came out, it came out in this beautiful trifold brown format, and it came with a booklet, and there was photos, and the packaging on this movie was absolutely beautiful. And
I think I still have my copy. I think so.
I'm pretty sure that I have every iteration that it was released
ever
on.
since VHS.
And so watching the behind the scenes, the making of this movie, you can tell the magic that goes into how this movie came about.
Well, it's a passion thing, right? And I think that goes back, I'm just going to refer to the notes here.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I think, the opening, I love the opening, where he's scribbling in the notebook. But also you see little tidbits of him going through the junk drawer, while he's scribbling the titles. And I think all of us geeks or outcasts, whatever you want to call it, we all had that drawer.
Right.
You all had the drawer full of shit, and it was just...
Ticket stubs for movies, concerts.
Before you even saw the characters in the movie, it's already relatable.
Right.
And I love everything about it because I had that drawer, and it's perfect.
So we get past learning about the Miller family and the Crowe family, actually.
Yeah.
You're learning about the dichotomy of that, and then we get this older William Miller, and he's standing outside of a radio station, and you have this presence. He takes up the whole screen when in any movie that he's in, really.
Yeah.
And that is Philip Seymour Hoffman as Lester Bangs, where he's talking about rock and roll and music.
He's hard to miss.
Right.
Yeah.
How beautiful music is because it means so much to everybody in a different way, and what it is to love music in your own way. And that's such an American ideal. Mm-hmm. And he's so right. This movie is a nostalgia trip. This is a comfort trip. It's everything that anybody could hope into a movie now.
Well, Zooey Deschanel, she's got that quote early on when she goes off to be a flight attendant, and she leaves a small record collection for William. And, it's look under your bed, it'll set you free. And that was all of us, right? I mean, I know the moment that I discovered music for myself, we all heard music when we were kids on the radio or whatever our parents were playing. But when you got to experience music on your own for yourself, I mean, you were set free.
Yeah.
There's another quote that I'll explain later on in the podcast. Hopefully I'll remember to refer back to this. But that's just that moment where really you are set free, where you're given your own opinion, your own choice, and you experience these things on your own. Where William, he plays the record with the candle, and I mean, he has his very first experience on his own where he starts to discover himself. It is so perfect because I didn't have that exact same experience myself. In my bedroom, I didn't have a turntable. I had a CD player.
Yeah.
So I had a CD player, but I can absolutely relate to what he's experiencing, and it is fucking perfect.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
And then, so we keep moving on. We keep meeting all of these characters that just make you want to live in this world, and you kind of actually do, but not at this time.
Yeah.
So we meet the Lester Bangs, the Philip Seymour Hoffman, and
in which I just want to interject here again, because he, being the outcast that he is, Lester Bangs, all the outcasts that are out there that love rock music, metal music, whatever, insert it here, whatever you like, that you felt like an outcast. Maybe you didn't look like that. Maybe you didn't have a flabby belly or whatever. Maybe you had a six-pack. Who knows? But at one point, you felt like an outcast, and you were Lester Bangs.
Right.
I felt like Lester Bangs at one point. I'm sure you did too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like he asks William when he's first meeting him, "What are you, the king of your school?" And
yes.
And he goes, "No, they hate me." And he goes, "Oh, you'll meet them on your road to the middle."
This is exactly right.
Right.
Yes, that's a great
quote. So it's so true for all of us. Like you immediately step into that whole you put yourself in that character where you're like, okay, yeah, maybe I was an outcast in high school. Maybe I didn't belong, but at least I'm being me, and at least I'm good at something. And so maybe I'll meet these people again at the middle.
And I feel like I've been about the same person since I'm like 8 years old.
Yeah.
So whatever. But I still feel like that outcast that I still don't know exactly who I am or what I want to do, but I know what I like. And that's movies and music, right? So.
Exactly. So we move forward in the movie and we meet the electric, the angelic, the ethereal Kate Hudson.
Ooh, ethereal's a good word for her.
Yeah. Playing
Miss Penny Lane.
The Miss Penny Lane. And yeah, you may have fallen in love with how disarming Zooey Deschanel is.
Yeah.
And how like damn the man she is. But there's something about Kate Hudson as Penny Lane where you just want to be a part of that world immediately.
Immediately. And I think, we've all had that experience with some love interest in our lives where we just meet that one person and we are hooked. We're in. And
so in that whole... I want to bring up a funny fact/part of the film. So there's that point in that first of all, how funny is it? Black Sabbath is the first band he goes to.
I have a point I want to make. Yeah. Go ahead, buddy. Yeah.
But she's talking to William just before they depart, and she goes, "I think we're going to Morocco."
Yeah.
Or Istanbul, or whatever it is.
It's Morocco.
Tell me, are you coming with? I think we're going to Morocco. And Patrick Fugit, who plays William Miller, actually breaks there, and he goes, "Yes. Say it to me again." And you see him disarm himself in that moment. He lets himself be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And it was an ad lib. And so they just kept it in because it was so disarming. It was so genuine that they...
It is very endearing because it also says to us, the audience, that, he wants to hear it again because he can't believe what he's hearing.
Right.
Up to this point, he's spent, his whole life in his mother's house, in his bedroom. And... he is now getting to experience an assignment where he's going to a concert to write 1,000 words on Black Sabbath. And then he meets this unbelievable creature who says, "Hey, we're going to Morocco. Are you coming?"
Yeah.
And it's like, where am I? How did I get here? And also, speaking of that, you had brought up Black Sabbath. I would have died to see Black Sabbath in 1970, what is this? 3?
Mm-hmm.
1973. They're just putting out Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. I am all in, 100%. And I would write 1,000 words on Black Sabbath right now for free. I don't have to go see them.
Maybe drink a little cough syrup.
Oh my God.
A little speed, just to write.
I would do it for free right now. I want the world to know about Black Sabbath. But I would love to have that assignment. And how cool is that? Yeah.
So let's go into a little bit more depth about casting, right? We've already talked about Patrick Fugit, and we talked about Kate Hudson and Zooey Deschanel. It is crazy to me that this movie is very much a movie of firsts, right?
Yeah.
All of this cast, except for maybe PSH,
mm-hmm.
maybe Frances McDormand,
definitely Frances McDormand, yeah.
These are all unknown people. Yeah, you get Anna Paquin, but I hate Anna Paquin, and that's where my missus.
You know my
that's
thoughts.
where my missus is.
I am not a fan of Anna Paquin.
Jason Lee, yeah, he was in a couple of movies with Kevin Smith, but that doesn't really
still,
count.
Those, I think, up to this point,
right?
They're considered indie. All
exactly.
Of them, and he had been in only Mallrats,
yeah.
and Chasing Amy,
right.
And Dogma.
Right.
Yeah. So he was still in indie projects up to this point.
So the casting for this movie is wild, by the way. When this movie was being put together,
mm-hmm.
I can't read you the amount of actresses who played for Penny Lane. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
Because the list... Think of 2000. Think of starlets in 2000.
Yes.
Whoever was popular at that time went for Penny Lane.
Of course. Yeah.
The funniest part of it is, and we'll talk about Russell Hammond in the future, but Russell Hammond was originally Brad Pitt. This was a Brad Pitt movie. And I don't think I could see this movie starring Brad Pitt.
Dude, completely different choice. And I am 100% glad that they decided to not go the Brad Pitt route, because it would have been a different movie.
The only thing I'm sad about when it comes to the casting of these movies is these actors did so well that you expected more out of them. Like Patrick Fugit.
Yeah.
Besides, I think I can name 2 other films that Patrick Fugit's in.
Yeah.
One being another Cameron Crowe film.
And the other one is...
White Oleander, which you and I have seen.
Yeah. But, yeah, getting Billy Crudup, Brad Pitt would have been a much different choice, man.
Well, so they started doing, like, they started workshopping, right? And they got to a certain point, and both Crowe and Pitt looked at each other and goes, this isn't a good fit.
I am a Brad Pitt fan.
Right.
You know, he's great. I think he's perfect. Obviously, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like, that's his 70s role. He fit it perfectly.
Yeah.
But as a Russell Hammond, I don't see it.
No.
Maybe I would have then, because he did star in California, and who knows? But Billy Crudup, it just fit. It just worked.
Right.
He had that edge to him where he was a nice guy, but he could be a dick.
Now, this is also one of those things I could maybe name like 3 other Billy Crudup films.
Well, and right now, I mean, he's on the morning show.
Right.
And I don't know if you watch that, but he is great
Yeah.
in the morning show.
But he stuck to that whole indie sort of thing, and that was his indie trajectory, you know. This was Jimmy Fallon's first, movie role.
Yeah. But yeah, I was just trying to look up, date of birth on Kate Hudson. I mean, she was literally just 20 years old.
Yeah.
And so for both Kate Hudson and Patrick Fugit, I mean, really, like, they were kids.
Right.
And I think that, especially for you and I, seeing this movie, when we were teenagers, I can identify, I know you can too, that, that first meeting with somebody that you're interested in.
Yeah.
And the beautiful meeting between Penny Lane and William Miller, I mean, you see it, right? Like, even though Penny Lane, up to this point, she's seen the world.
Right.
She's gotten to tour with all these bands, and she's this Band-Aid, as where William Miller, he's seen nothing.
Right.
He up to, a few weeks or months before, he hadn't even heard a record because his mother won't let him. And now he's getting thrust into it, and he's in love with Penny Lane. And I think that moment that they meet outside of the whatever arena that they're at to see Black Sabbath, it was like perfect.
Yeah.
And I can identify with that. I think most of us can.
So we talked about the start of the film. We talked about who's in the film. Let's talk about moments that miss.
I don't have many. One of them is Anna Paquin, but I also I get it, because I mean, just because she's cast in the movie or just because she is a part of the crew, you don't have to like her.
Right.
I get it. There's going to be people like that no matter what walk of life.
The thing that really sets me off when it comes to, that's one of the few misses for me.
Yeah.
Is Anna Paquin, is like when they're in that hotel scene. And she
when they deflower?
No.
Oh, okay.
When she tells they're at the Hyatt, the Riot House.
Oh, sure.
The first time, like, Penny goes to sneak and be with Russell Hammond, right?
Yeah.
She tells William that he was the reason why.
Oh, Penny came?
Yeah, Penny came. But she has this English inflection.
Well, sure.
And is she really British?
No, she's not British, but it also, and I hate to give her credit because I don't like Anna Paquin, but it might be acting on her part because maybe, like Penny Lane, she has also seen the world now. Maybe she toured with The Who. Maybe she toured with the Stones.
It's just so ridiculous and so pretentious to me.
I dig it. I mean, like, as much as I can... Also, I never realized up until this point, it's literally coming to my mind right now, that Philip Seymour Hoffman and Anna Paquin have been in this movie together, and 25th Hour.
Yeah.
Which I also love.
Right.
25th, and my wife, Tiffany, she loves 25th Hour.
25th Hour, we both saw that together.
Really, because of Phil Seymour Hoffman.
Right.
And obviously the talented Edward Norton. But, so anyway, I digress. So for me, the soundtrack is beautiful.
Yeah.
The acting is perfect. The writing is perfect. The directing is perfect. And I also wrote a note in here about Nancy Wilson's score.
Yeah.
Nancy Wilson, who was then married to Cameron Crowe, who is also a co-founding member of Heart. Nancy Wilson is so damn good. Her brief score, contribution is wonderful. And yeah, it just hits.
Well, her and Frampton wrote all of the Stillwater songs.
I know.
And that's crazy because I'm not a Frampton guy.
Yeah.
And so, I'm like, oh, son of a bitch.
I'm not really a Frampton guy either, but was it Frampton Comes Alive?
Yeah.
That Cameron Crowe wrote, I guess, was it considered a foreword for that? Yeah. So, and this was his payback to Cameron Crowe, which, how fucking cool is that?
So, you talk about the soundtrack. This is how indelible, how inked into my life is because of you, by the way. I kept the CD because they had the Stillwater CD that came with the DVD.
Yeah.
But I
still listen to Fever Dog to this day. It's so good.
I bought the 10-inch Record Store Day exclusive Stillwater album. And so it's Stillwater as the band.
Well, as William Miller says, the guitar work is incendiary.
And then I didn't buy the 8-disc superset that was like $100 or $250 or whatever. I have the 4-disc sort of wink, wink, nudge, nudge edition that I absolutely fell in love with. And it's because of you that I do have these.
Dude, for any of our listeners from any other work that we've ever done, I was born in the mid-'80s. However, I am a 70s guy through and through. How I wasn't born and gotten to experience the 70s is beyond me because I wish I could have. Everything about the 70s is perfect for me.
So let's go to hit the marks. So because you already mentioned the soundtrack.
Yeah. What hits the mark? 99.9% of the movie.
So this moment, this Tiny Dancer moment in the film when they're all on the bus and Russell Hammond came off from a bad acid trip where he tells everybody he's the golden god.
Which is something that I think Robert Plant did sober in London.
Yeah.
And it was like he wasn't on acid, he just did it sober on a balcony somewhere.
And so I think one of the Allman Brothers also claimed that they went on a bad acid trip and also quit the band and some sort of...
I believe it because I think Russell Hammond was loosely based on Greg Allman.
Yeah.
Who distrusted Cameron Crowe in real life.
Yeah.
So I guess that tracks, right? So...
what was I saying? So hits the mark. So the Tiny Dancer scene has been said, AFI and a few other things, is a top 100 movie moments for music and film.
It's wonderful, right? And then, so I've read, you have the fun facts, I don't. But a fun fact is Patrick Fugit, I guess Cameron Crowe thought that he was such a bad singer that he turned down all of his audio because he couldn't sing Tiny Dancer like the rest of the crew. And he didn't want to divert from the beautiful moment.
You didn't want it as a comedic moment with Fugit singing so bad. But also to that, they sang it so much. So Cameron Crowe as a director is known to let actors shoot as many times as they want in a scene. So he'll do scenes over and over and over again. And we'll talk about this a little bit later because there's that part where Russell Hammond walks into the house.
Yeah.
Where he's looking for Penny Lane, but he's actually walking into William's house. And Zooey Deschanel does this. She moves a certain way when he walks in, she can't believe this guy's just walking into her house.
Yeah.
There's this disarming way that she does. And she had said that if Crowe wasn't as comfortable or let the actors be as comfortable with it after take, we wouldn't get that nuanced in that scene. And I think that's for most of this film is that Crowe allowed all of these wonderful actors who were worried about making this a big film to feel comfortable in their characters, feel comfortable in their scenes.
Yeah, and I think that this is sort of new territory for Cameron Crowe as well.
Yeah.
Because as a writer, he's clearly established.
Right.
Whether it's Fast Times or Say Anything or Jerry Maguire, obviously he directed that too. But this is his first real, truly autobiographical piece.
Yeah.
That he's exploring new territory. And these new actors are doing the same thing as he is.
So the guy playing the manager, he was so over Tiny Dancer.
Yeah.
That you see him only interact every once in a while because he was so over singing it. So that's why, like, in certain scenes, you'll see him have his face, like, covered. He was over singing it with the rest of the group.
It's beautiful.
So let's talk about Crowe a little bit more. Let's talk about him establishing. So
Dude,
when
I love it.
When I watched this movie, I got into a hole because, fun fact with Uncle Do, this movie didn't make any money.
No, not a lot. Yeah.
So they made the movie for about 60 mil. It only made 47 because unfortunately it got released with 1973's The Exorcist, where they re-released the director's cut.
Yeah.
And that completely knocked them out of the water.
Yep.
And so they actually lost 12.6 mil on this movie. And so...
I don't know how.
So... As I said at the beginning, Randy and I are very big Crowe fans. There's another movie that Randy and I are over for that is a Cameron Crowe, but it was also a box office bomb, and that's Elizabethtown, which was made for 45 mil and only made 10 mil.
Yeah.
And so, watching this and knowing that these were box office bombs, I started thinking, I said, if he doesn't make money at the box office... Yeah. Why the hell do they let Cameron Crowe keep making movies?
Right.
I was mistaken in that whole assumption. He's actually at a net of $384,600,000. So in his lifetime career, he has made that much at box office instead of losing.
Obviously, Jerry Maguire was a huge hit for him. Vanilla Sky was a huge hit for him.
Vanilla Sky made 203 mil.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Jerry Maguire made 273 mil. The one that I thought was going to be the Doom one, like We Bought a Zoo, which was critically panned.
I love it.
I enjoy it. It made 120 mil off from a 50 mil budget.
So, yeah, we went to go see that movie with Mason, my son.
Yeah.
And he loved it. Tiff and I both loved it. And we still watch it to this day because it's fun.
That's the one thing about Crowe that I want to talk about is...
Well, I also feel like... Yeah, I'll let you go. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Yeah, because I just feel like he's such a passion project guy.
Yeah. Because
I look at Elizabethtown and he is so... Because I know how Almost Famous is semi-autobiographical. I know that Elizabethtown is also semi-autobiographical.
Yeah.
And you can feel the relatability, the personability into each piece that he writes.
Yeah.
And it just makes you want to watch more of it. For me, because I look at Elizabethtown and it, my dad's side of the family is from West Virginia.
Yeah.
Elizabethtown, obviously Elizabethtown, Kentucky. And so not too far away. And so you see the family that Orlando Bloom, who's an Englishman, he goes home to see. And it's so relatable to me, which is, obviously for thousands, millions of people, it's so relatable to that he's going home to bury his father.
Yeah.
And obviously everybody on earth, they've got a mother and a father.
Yeah.
And so if your dad dies, you gotta settle. You gotta go home, you gotta bury your dad, you gotta whatever. And it is so relatable.
Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful story that, anyway, we're talking about Almost Famous, right?
Yeah.
But Elizabethtown.
Well, that's what I was going to tell you about Cameron Crowe. To my point is every movie sort of kind of projects his life, right?
Yeah.
Say Anything was about him.
Fast Times.
Yeah, Fast Times. Jerry Maguire was every little step in his life. We Bought a Zoo was the loss of during his divorce to Nancy Wilson, right?
Yeah.
The only movie that doesn't really fit into play here is Aloha.
Which makes sense.
That's the only movie out of all of them that doesn't feel disjointed from Cameron Crowe as relatable or personable in that.
Right. And obviously his Tom Petty / Pearl Jam projects in between have all been very personal projects.
I was never a Pearl Jam guy.
I still to this day am not.
I was never, but you damn right I watched that documentary that he made. You and I, Cameron Crowe, could, make a documentary about shit. And we'd be like, okay, I'll watch 2 hours about shit.
Why am I watching this shit about poop?
But like I think, even Aloha, we still saw it, in some form.
Yeah, I mean he has a craft.
Right.
Like he knows his craft. He's very good at it. And for Emma Stone, you can watch her read, the fucking pizza menu, and you're in.
Yeah.
She is wonderful. And I'm not a Bradley Cooper guy, but who's the other one? Rachel McAdams.
Yeah.
She's also great.
Yeah.
So just watching him with that cast and crew, who's just, you can tell that they're all having fun.
That's the one thing about him, that he knows how to put together an ensemble cast that can fucking work.
Yes. Do you have anything else?
No, the soundtrack was perfect. The ensemble cast is perfect.
I also think it's cool that fucking Cameron Crowe was able to get Led Zeppelin to sign off.
Yeah.
For all of our listeners out there, Led Zeppelin, they don't sign off for anything.
No.
And they were Cameron Crowe was able to get Led Zeppelin for Almost Famous.
Now they didn't give him Stairway to Heaven like he wanted.
Right.
Which is a very funny section of that the bootleg version.
Yes.
So Randy and I, for the purpose of this podcast, we watched the normal version that everybody's available to. But this other version, the bootleg version, it gives a little bit more, where it trims and cuts. The longer version, it makes sense that it was trimmed and cut. But because we love the movie so much, of course we're going to watch that bootleg version.
Absolutely.
And of course we may have watched it more than one time.
I'm going to watch more of it. Yeah.
But there's certain scenes. Now, he took this finished film, flew over to England, and went to John Paul Jones and everybody else of Led Zeppelin and said, listen, this is my movie. This is a love letter to the 70s rock that you are a part of.
Yeah.
I would love to have your song included in this movie. And they went, okay, we'll give you this song, but we're not giving you Stairway to Heaven because it's Stairway to fucking Heaven.
Yeah.
But, it's wild to me. And I think that says a lot about Cameron Crowe as well. I mean, we keep putting him over. But
he's a fan.
Right.
And that's something that's so relatable. Because even, Led Zeppelin, they can say Robert Plant, Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones, they can say at one point they were huge Chuck Berry fans.
Right.
And say if Chuck Berry came up to them at, however old, and said, hey, listen, I want to use your song.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
We're all fans here.
Yeah.
But I have a few more points here. So there's the Penny Lane quote, and I forget exactly when this is in the movie. But she says, if you ever get lonely, go to the record store and visit your friends.
Yeah.
Like, that is just something that, I still feel to this day. I know you do too.
Yeah. And it may not be to the record store. Maybe it's whatever movie I put on.
Yes.
I find my friends. And it's very true. Whatever media you absolutely love.
John Wayne, Cary Grant.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're ever looking for comfort in something, you put whatever you want on, and you find your friends. And it's so true, and it's so apropos.
Great quote.
So we don't have very many misses.
No.
We have all hits.
One of the hits is Rainn Wilson as a 70s businessman with his weird stash.
Yeah.
I love the stash.
Yeah.
That hits for me. Also, the last note that I have, because I identified that the midpoint of this movie is when William Miller, he says, I have to get home. And Penny Lane on the tour bus, she does her little hand thing and says, you are home. And that is something to me that, like, that's it, right?
Yeah.
The life of, number one, a vagabond, like a Penny Lane. She's all over the place. She doesn't care. She doesn't have a home.
Right.
But like a William Miller, I mean, that is his home because he identifies with the music. He couldn't relate any less to Frances McDormand.
Right.
So that is his home. I mean, why would he go anywhere else?
Well, and he in that short time on that tour, he experienced life. He experienced life that he didn't get to do when he was at home. Like, he finally found, like we had talked about, his family, his friends.
Yeah.
So...
And I do find it funny because, we can go fast forward to the end of the movie when he finally does get home and he goes into his room and he crashes on his bed.
Yeah.
And he just sinks right into that bed frame. And it is like, okay, I can understand.
Yeah.
He's done. He's spent. But at the same time, he sinks into that bed, and then a day or two later, Russell Hammond shows up on his doorstep, walks into his bedroom, and he snaps right back.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, he's no longer home.
Right.
He's back on the road with Stillwater.
Yeah.
So, it is, I mean, dude, it's an infectious bug. This shit that we have. This addiction that we have to movies and music and art. Yeah, that's exactly what William Miller has.
Right. And that's kind of why we picked, you'll see in the next movie as well, that's kind of why we picked the movies that we did to start off, is we want you guys to kind of get a feel for who we are. Like, you probably know us in everyday life, but do you know us?
Yeah,
and I think
not.
Yeah, and I think, through the films that we pick and the films that we talk about and the experiences that we experience through these films, being these movie marks, you get to know us a little bit better.
There's really not a whole lot of structure here. I think that what's beautiful about this whole thing is that, we can do an eye. If I see a movie, or if I think about a movie that I saw that really hit the mark, that was like, holy shit, you really got to see this movie. Or it missed the mark, being, oh man, this was so bad, you have to see this. And we also want to hear from all of you.
Right.
And this is something that, all of our friends, all of our audience here, if anybody, if you want to participate, we want to hear from you guys.
Yeah.
If there's something that you love or you hate or you want to talk more about, let's do it.
Tell us about what you didn't like or did like in Almost Famous. What resonated from you? What's a movie that you may want us to talk about in the future? And where can they find us, Rand?
I mean, we're on all the socials, right?
Yeah.
I mean, really, the best place to find us is our link tree, because everything that we're on is on the link tree. But we're on the Facebook, we're on the Instagram, we're on the X, we're on the Threads, we're on the YouTube. Really anywhere that you can find us.
And like, subscribe, comment, so that we can get the word of mouth out there and maybe keep doing this.
Absolutely.
Full time here.
And I think, like if it's viable, because we'll obviously have to record in person, so if there's a possibility to record with you, if you are part of our, contact group, we'd love to have you on the podcast.
Yeah.
So let us know if you want to be a part of it, and let us know what movie you'd like to bring. Give us a little bit of leeway.
It kind of gave you a little peek around the corner. We have a guest lined up for our first guest podcast, so I'm super excited about bringing him.
It's a couple episodes away, but I'm ready. I'm very excited about this.
Yeah. So thank you guys for listening to our first episode of Movie Marks. Anything else I missed, Rand?
I think that's it. So, just really thank you very much for everybody that's listening, and, we just appreciate each and every one of you.